Married or single, father or fatherless, doesn't matter. We're calling you to the man cave right now. Conversations from the Cave is a raw self-help podcast dedicated to discussing men's issues, from pornography to parenting, from religion to real life, from learning to loving. We discuss the real issues that affect real men every day. Join us each week for powerful, revealing Conversations from the Cave. Now, your host, Kirk Kennedy.
Happy Sunday to you. I am your host, Kirk Kennedy. I'm hanging out with Bobby Lee today. We are cruising into our new set of podcasts. We're talking about today infidelity in the single man. How in the world can a single man get caught into infidelity? We're going to probe the topic today. We're going to also be talking about how easy it is to slip past our boundaries and find ourselves into situations that can be, kind of complex. We're going to get to that right after these messages.
You're listening to the Conversations from the Cave show with host Kirk Kennedy and the CFTC crew. You can search for the CFTC podcast on Alexa and Siri. CFTC is also available for download on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, TuneIn, Tumblr, Podcast Republic, and Google Play Music. Want your church or men's group to host the next CFTC Live Man Up Conference? Contact the crew on provoxmediagroup.com/man up. Now, back to the Man Cave with Kirk Kennedy and the CFTC crew.
We're back. Thanks for sticking around. Kirk Kennedy and Bobby Lee. We're talking about infidelity today, man. And so this is kind of a tough topic, right? This one's kind of tough.
Very tough.
The big challenge, I think, is nobody wants to admit to infidelity. And I think that infidelity not only works at the core of dividing our families, but infidelity can be a source of challenge emotionally, because a lot of times those relationships they never mature into anything but pain. So if you start a relationship that ends up being one that one of the other parties is committed. So today we're going to be talking specifically about single men having relationships with married women, right? And that one is not talked about as much in the media as we hear about men picking women out and having relations with them. We always hear about, the chick on the side chick. I mean, there's a lot of things, we hear these contexts, the side chick and the other girl, the other woman.
Yeah. But
you don't hear about it the other way around. So we're gonna talk about that today. Man, give me your feelings first of all on infidelity. You think it's right? You think it's wrong?
No, infidelity is definitely wrong from a perspective, coming from a spiritual perspective, as well as coming from a person with high integrity and a person that's supposed to have high morals.
Why? Why is it wrong?
Why is it wrong? Is one, if you are committed, especially if we're talking marriage and you made a vow before God, when you're speaking spiritually, it's wrong because you already made a vow and you are breaking that vow, not just to your husband, but also to God.
All right, so what about the people who don't believe in God, and what about those? Do they get a pass?
Do they get a pass? No, because you also supposed to have a commitment to one another. A commitment means that you trust someone to not hurt you. So infidelity will cause pain and suffering. Mm-hmm. So if you go step out of your marriage, whether it be the man or woman, the other person will eventually suffer from that once it comes out, if it comes out.
So what do you think about open relationships then? Is that still considered infidelity?
Honestly, I don't know. It depends on the individuals that's in it. I can honestly say I've had conversations with women that wanted to enter into open relationships with me.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, no, that's not something that I'm personally into. I didn't condemn them for asking me, but it wasn't something that I was willing to engage in.
Now, why would you say it would be important not to engage in that? Why? You talked about the pain. What pain are you specifically talking about?
I mean, pain can come in a lot of different forms. It can be from trust being broken. It can be from, say, a person step out and they contract a disease and they bring it home.
Wow.
You know,
wait. Yeah, okay. Wow. Okay. You went there. Oh.
But
they got burned is what you're saying. They got burned.
Literally.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah, but, you know, things like that happen. You know, I recently just moved to the Atlanta area, and I can honestly tell you, I'm petrified just to date out there. So let alone being in a committed relationship and stepping out and coming back home.
Right.
I'm like, the scenario is scary just to think about.
Right. So check it out. So what you just talked about, and just to recap, is number one, there's trust that can happen. Mm-hmm. Number two is there's pain that can happen from the breach of trust. Mm-hmm. Number three is you can actually physically put yourself in harm's way with a relationship.
Right, and I will also add on to that, what if you start developing feelings for the person that you
Absolutely. So that sort of speaks to my original point, which is that relationship, if you develop feelings for that person and they're already involved in a committed relationship, somebody's going to get hurt. Absolutely. The woman coming out of the other relationship is definitely going to be hurt because you love two people. At the end of the day, even if you don't love them the same, you still love two people. One bond is going to be painful.
Right, and what if you come across a fatal attraction where the woman steps out and the man falls in love and he don't want to let her go? He don't want her just to go back and try to make her marriage work and be with her husband. He's like, no, he wants to lay claim to the woman now.
Right. So what you're saying is, as a single guy, potentially developing feelings can not only loop you into a painful situation, but it might actually expose you to a volatile situation. What if the husband finds out about the relationship and wants to kill you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And cases like that happen every day.
Right.
Cases like that happen every day.
So is the issue of infidelity wrong because they don't know about it?
I would say anytime something is done behind a loved one's back, where previously it's been spoken that it wasn't supposed to happen, is wrong. If you already have an agreement amongst each other that X, Y, and Z is not allowed, and somebody does it, then I'm sorry. What you're doing is wrong. Whether it's a moral, spiritual issue or just a human-to-human choice issue, you still call it wrong. I call it wrong simply because it wasn't pre-discussed, it wasn't agreed upon, and in fact, you're going against everything that was agreed upon. Assuming that you didn't enter into that relationship, knowing that it was going to be open. How difficult is it for single men then to be good husbands once they've entered into infidelity relationships with married women? Do you think it has an impact on the thinking of being single? So if a single man has a relationship with a married woman, how much do you think he will trust married women or marrying a woman? Well, that's a good question. Because right now you're saying, well, if she's willing to violate marriage, why would I pick one? Right. Yeah. So does that play a role? I can honestly say, for me, it definitely do. So it does play a role. Yes, I can say. Why? In my last relationship, we were married, but we did live together, and pretty much everything was a marriage without the piece of paper. Okay. So when do you advise that? No. Okay. I've never done it again. I can tell you that now. Oh wow. Okay, we're gonna come back. We're gonna circle back to that one. All right, go ahead. So when I found out that she was cheating, oh wow, it impacted me. Now that I'm single and dating, it makes me feel like I can't trust a woman's smile anymore. Because if I know a woman that I love can smile in my face and lie to me and not feel guilty about it, of course it's going to affect me going forward.
Wow.
But it takes mental strength and confidence in yourself to be able to move on from that and not carry it into the next relationship. But everybody doesn't have that ability to be able to get over certain trauma and try to move on and find something better.
You know what? We're going to explore that when we come back.
The Conversations from the Cave show is brought to you by the Alabama Cornea Care Center, Northern Alabama's first irregular cornea and sclera lens referral center. Dedicated to the management of complex irregular cornea cases, they provide hope and compassionate care for patients suffering from keratoconus, refractive surgery complications, and degenerative eye diseases. Call 256-937-1213 or visit alabamacorneacare.com for more details. Now, back to the Man Cave with Kirk Kennedy and the CFTC crew.
We are back. Thanks for sticking around. This is Conversations from the Cave, of course, and we are talking about infidelity and the single man today. This is a very difficult topic because there are issues that, one, are related to the emotional pain that happens. Number two is dealing with how it will impact your future relationships. And then number three is how is it, before we go into this third thing, how is it that you think single men can be drawn into these relationships with married women, and what makes them more susceptible? Bobby Lee?
I tell you, the first thing comes to my mind is, and ladies, forgive me for pointing this out, but when woman gets older, some women, not all, and sometimes the man that they with just isn't satisfying them anymore. They're growing apart, so they will go out and search for maybe a younger man or somebody that they feel might be able to give them the satisfaction that the physical satisfaction that they're not getting. Mm-hmm. But also, you always hear that the reasons why women cheat are different than the reasons men cheat.
Okay.
So a lot of times you would assume, me being a single man, that if she's willing to step out on her husband, it's got to be trouble in paradise at home.
Okay.
So,
So you would, as a single guy, think it might be an opportunity for you later to have that woman?
For some single men, yes. Me personally, I wouldn't. Okay. Simply because of
I was saying proverbial you. I wasn't saying right. You. Yeah.
But I say that because I can admit that when I was younger, in my early 20s, I did have experience with married women. And I can attest to that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But at no point did I think that was going to lead into a long-term situation.
Wow.
But I have met women that are married and are in love with other people outside of their marriage.
And you believe that because of the infidelity, that made them susceptible?
Absolutely. You can't fall in love with somebody without giving the opportunity to. That's something that you got to build over time.
So let's divide two things up: infatuation and love. Right? So we're talking about single guys. Do you think single guys may be enamored with the idea of having free time with the woman, physical time with the woman, without having the responsibility of taking care of her, and that could be a benefit to the guy?
Well, being a man is more complex than what society tends to believe.
Okay.
And, the different motivations behind men's actions is kind of hard to say and put in a generalized statement.
Right. But, that is, you're right. It's a broad statement. It's true. Mm-hmm.
But I will say, let me speak from my experience. I personally, with the married women from my past that I know and that I may have dealt with, I know that it was mostly physical for them. And not only that, but a lot of older women feel like if they get with a younger man, they can mold them into what they want and get from them what it is that they feel like they want to get.
Right. So the impact of the relationship is uneven.
Absolutely.
Woman is coming in a position of power.
Absolutely.
And because of that, she can then influence the younger man. So that's her reason, maybe, right? And you said the younger man's reason would be what? What do you think in the younger man's reason? Mostly for the physical?
Mostly physical pleasure and getting something that he made.
Masculine affirmation?
Yes.
Okay.
Feeling like that he's able to get something from somebody else and provide what somebody else can't provide.
Right.
So,
and a lot of married women are financially established because they're in a married household.
Absolutely.
So a single guy may not have to be in the complete role. He may just be in that one role.
Right. If a woman steps out, and this is just me speaking general, they already know, like you said, they in the position of power. They know what they're looking for. They know what they want. Mm-hmm. And usually they'll tell whoever they're dealing with outside of their marriage that this is what it's going to be. It's nothing more, nothing less. Mm-hmm. And they maintain that position of power and let you know. Do not expect more than what I'm willing to give.
Right. Right.
Some of them will even tell you, I'm not leaving my husband, but this is what I want right now, and this is what I'm asking you to provide. If you ever have an issue with it, then, it is what it is. We'll come up with something else, so I just
roll out.
Right.
Right. You got to do it. Okay. So how can single men, because you are no longer choosing that life. Right. Why and what allowed you to make the difference, make the change?
Maturity and, becoming closer to God. But definitely growing older and getting wiser and understanding that what I put out in the world, I have to worry about it coming back towards me with karma, as well as I can't expect something beautiful to come my way if I'm being ugly to someone else.
Wow. Can you talk about what makes a single man more susceptible to this type of why is this so insidious and why is this more difficult than other things?
I wouldn't say it's more difficult than other things. I would just say it's one of the things that everyone has to deal with. Because not only when you're single, but also when men are in relationships as well. They have certain motivations on why they want to step out. But from a single perspective, you can be lonely, and here comes a woman giving you attention, or you can...
Makes sense. Actually, I think you're right. You're touching on hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. You might...
And most people want to give credit, but...
The needs are the same, but the ways to satisfy them may be slightly different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, we're going through a time in society now, especially here in America, that there's a social shift when it comes to women and their sexuality. I think of it as a new sexual awakening where women are definitely more empowered to take control, want to be in that dominant side of their sexuality.
Right.
And it's totally different than it used to be on how you have to navigate life now. Especially when you say, you asked the question earlier, would me dealing with a married woman affect the way I would look at a woman looking forward in the future?
Yeah, if you were married to a woman, if you know that she was violating her, if you were with a woman who would violate, then how you're not picking a woman who will violate?
Right. So with the cultural shift, and you see it happen more and more frequently, you'll definitely be more hesitant to commit and trust the person that you're with.
Is the impact of our choices? Okay, so let me back up. So you have mentioned that there is a choice that you had to make because of your maturity that led you to begin to say, hey, I'm going to set these standards for myself. I want more. I don't want half a relationship. I want to have a complete relationship, one that's all mine. So you set up boundaries, and you are not allowing your hungriness, angry, lonely, or tiredness to affect your decisions, because you've already started out with a standard, right?
Right.
How can you communicate to other guys how to set that standard?
You got to have self-respect. And you have to define what that self-respect means to you as an individual. I can't tell someone you have to do X, Y, and Z because...
What were the steps you took? Perhaps maybe that's a better question. How did you get to a place of self-respect? How did you demand more of yourself and what you could get from relationships? Because clearly you wouldn't have started out, you didn't start out thinking the same way you think now.
Well, I had to take a deep look at myself and really look in the mirror.
Some introspection.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And I had to say, well, I have to be the person that I feel I can respect first. If I can't respect myself, how can I request that somebody else respect me?
Right.
And once I figured that aspect out, I realized I have to begin walking every day in my new truth. You know, that I can't allow society to pressure me to be a certain type of man.
Got you.
I can't allow what I see in the movies to influence me, what I hear in music to influence me. And I just had to discover for myself who it is that I wanted to be. And not only that, ask myself what kind of woman I wanted. And how can I go about finding her?
Right.
What kind of man does this woman want?
Right.
So, you know, I think all of those things really helped me change into a more positive person. You know, again, being more spiritual and reading the Bible and doing a lot of studying, a lot of meditating has definitely helped. And just having more self-control has made me a stronger man.
I love that phrase. Self-control has made you a stronger man.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about self-control. What does self-control mean to you? Because clearly some people say, oh, self-control means, you know, I can hang out with her, but I'm not going to do this. Or self-control says, well, I can indulge in this, but this is what this means. You understand? So some people set these different ideas and then they just won't pass a certain line. But when you say self-control, what do you mean? And what would you say would be ideal in terms of developing self-control? Are you saying abstinence? Are you saying, what are you saying?
I would encourage no sex before marriage. I definitely would.
Why?
One, because...
That's a self-control you're talking about, presumably.
That's one of them.
Okay.
But everybody is not capable of that. Let's just be honest. Everybody is not capable. But I would say abstinence because, one, you're learning yourself. You have to have time to know what kind of love you want. You can't expect somebody to love you if you can't tell them how you want to be loved. And you only find that out by being by yourself.
Right.
But not only that, whoever comes in your circle during this time period in your life, they'll see it and recognize it. And if that's something that they're commending you for, then they'll stick around. Or if that's something that they looking at you weird and like, what is wrong with this guy?
Then that's probably not the right choice for you.
It's probably not the right choice, and it'll help filter through the madness.
Right.
So you got to have more avenues to be able to filter through everything going on out here as far as being single and dating. But self-control is a major factor.
We'll be right back.
The Conversations from the Cave show is sponsored by Optique Huntsville, signature looks for men with discriminating taste. Design your signature look with stylists from Optique Huntsville. For more information, call 256-886-7281. Now, back to the Man Cave with Kirk Kennedy and the CFTC crew.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. We've been talking with Bobby Lee about the importance of, first of all, setting up some boundaries, setting up some guidelines, choosing to make choices that will allow us to have some self-control, allow us not to be susceptible to certain kinds of things. So, Bobby Lee has taken the time to explain why a single man should choose to have some self-control. And what he's basically said over the course of this discussion is that it keeps you from being hurt, keeps you at a standard that you can look at yourself in the mirror. It also allows you to be able to distinguish more clearly whether or not that's the right woman for you. Because a lot of women who are having low moral standard may not be the kind of woman you want to enter into a long-term relationship with. You're also talking about the importance of developing a standard by which you hold yourself accountable to. And as a man, I think that is one of the critical factors that has become so important now, because there are standards that a lot of men just don't have. They don't have any standard. Whatever the lowest rung of decision, they'll choose it, you know. And it makes them much more susceptible, I think, also to the development. It makes them also deal with some issues. Deal with some issues in coping, because men who get involved in these relationships now all of a sudden have the physical scars, the emotional scars, and spiritual scars that these relationships cause. So the question now, Bobby Lee, is now that you've set these standards, now that you've cultivated an understanding of what's important to you, how do you suggest men who are in these relationships, because you didn't stay in yours.
No.
And I'm going to also, in the interest of full disclosure, I didn't stay in mine either. I didn't stay in mine. It was hard to break free because you mentioned people who catch feelings. You catch feelings, and then you become susceptible to wanting to have that relationship continue. And unfortunately, it's only going to continue one way. Somebody's going to get hurt, and that's not going to end well, you know. So the key is, how are you going to set it up so that people who are in it, how do you tell them to exit?
You're asking how?
How do you, yeah. I mean, we've already said, okay, you want to get out. You know you're in the wrong. You got into this thing. You in it hook, line, and sinker. You got your married woman. Now you need to get out of it. What do you do?
You leave.
How does that happen? How do you leave?
Easy. If she's married, change your number or block her on your phone. What's she gonna do? Hunt you down? No.
What if you work for her?
Oh man, well you entering into something totally different if you want to include the workspace, because you can't get away from it then, and you putting your job at risk, because you might have a situation where you got to go to HR and get the company involved just to get her to stay away from you, or just to make sure that the company know what the situation is, so they can know in the future what to look out for.
What about
Actually had that happen with me one time. I was talking to this woman on my job, and this is why I got a rule now: never date anybody I work with. But
that's a good rule.
Yeah. So I found out that she was either married or separated because I wound up getting an email from her husband.
Wow.
And when I read the email, I was oblivious to this guy's existence. I didn't even know he existed.
Yeah.
And once I found that, I completely stopped talking to her.
Yeah.
And when she would approach me at work, and I'd just walk away and I wouldn't say nothing, I didn't even bring up the fact that I got an email from this guy.
Yeah.
Like, she completely flipped, and I almost got fired of the situation because she started lying on me on stuff.
Oh, man.
And I was like, oh my God, what kind of situation did I get myself into?
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't even know that she had a husband.
Right.
or whatever he was.
Right.
So, I just warn against that for everybody to hear. Do not mess with anybody you work with.
Excellent advice.
Don't do that.
Excellent advice. So there's two things I want to say. So number one, you mentioned that you didn't know. You didn't know. And I want to talk about that because that's its own specific compartment. There are a lot of guys involved in relationships where they don't know the status of the other participant. And the way to deal with that is with time. So if you don't get involved physically with that person and you take time, sooner or later, you will have the information necessary to understand their status. Take your time. You know, some guys, they see a beautiful woman and the first thing they want to do is explore all of the physical aspects of what she's got. But what they don't realize is she may not be telling you the truth.
Absolutely.
And that we don't think about that. And
men don't think about it.
Men don't think about it. They say if it's available, that's it. But you may not know that she is involved in a relationship or the nature of the relationship she's involved in. You got to take time to know that. You got to know the level of it, the depth of it, whatever is going on. That's important. So I think number one, guys need to slow down. Slow way down. If a woman is way too eager, chances are it's something bad in that situation.
Something bad.
Right? So that's number one. Number two, you talked about self-discipline. Self-control, physical self-control is an absolute must. You can't go into a situation all out of control emotionally. You got to be whole and act whole so that you're not drawn into something that will make your life very, very difficult. Number three, I think it's really critical to recognize where your blind spots are. So when guys get into relationships, usually they get into relationships to meet a need. And if that need is not met properly, it becomes a blind spot. And if someone sees that, they will tend to attack that area. Mm-hmm. So if you are a guy who needs, a lot of physical time, well, what do you think they're going to come around with? Physical time. She might not be able to provide anything else for that relationship, but the physical time, that's going to be a big deal. If you are her emotional husband, because her, that fills that void for her. And that's something that means that you're not making room for the woman who's going to be your full cup. So you settling for, and that's the thing I want to talk about for guys. A lot of guys will fill their time and their space with women they have no intention of keeping long term. Ever. Never. And the reason why is because they're fighting the loneliness clause. They're fighting that loneliness thing, or that hunger for sex, or that hunger for companionship, and they're busy sticking people they know good and well won't be good choices long term. So by making that choice, they will stick in a relationship trying to make something that's broken work when it's never meant to work in the first place.
And you knew it wasn't going to work.
And you knew it wasn't going to work. And then now, when you get on the other side of it, you're in deep, you 6 months in, 12 months in, 5 years in, 10 years. Pregnant, you got a kid, and you know that relationship is no good. But you're in it now. Whereas if you take the time to actually study yourself, to know what issues you have or what things you need, and the same thing with the woman, having the right woman who then can fill that space. Don't fill your space with the wrong type of woman. And that's my admonition. I think you mentioned that. I think it was, sort of in a roundabout way. But I think a lot of times we single guys, I'm a single guy right now, you don't want to end up filling your space with the wrong woman, because then the right woman can't come into your space because you got her so. Steve Harvey, I like Steve Harvey in a lot of ways. I don't like everything he says, but there's some things that he says that actually make some sense. Yeah. So he said one thing, and I'm going to relay this story. This is not my story. This is Steve Harvey's story. Steve Harvey tells a story, goes to his mom, and tells his mom, I'm going to get a new car. You know this story. A lot of people know this story. I'm going to get a new car, Mom. She said, "What? I'll believe that when you do deal with the old car." And he said, "Why do you keep knocking my dream?" You know, he kept saying, "I'm going to get this new car. I'm going to get this new car. I'm going to get this new car." And she kept saying, "I believe that when you get rid of the old car." The old car was on blocks in the driveway. There's no place to put the new car while the old car still continued to be in the driveway. And a lot of times, until you move the old car out of the driveway, you don't have room in your life for the new car. You don't have room in your life to be filled up because you're half filled with something that's way less than what you need. You're half filled with the kind of situation that isn't going to meet your complete human experience. That person is never going to be able to walk with you till the grave. And I think a lot of times we stop short of even thinking long term. And that's why our standards tend to be much, much, much lower, because we're trying to say, well, I'll just get this feeling while I'm dealing with it right now. And then later, I'll find the right one. And we end up getting the scars from all the wrong ones. And it's harder to enjoy the right one because we now damage goods from the wrong ones.
Now, you actually saying something right there, because there are so many hurt men out here.
Absolutely.
You know, you never hear nobody talk about that.
Right.
You never hear nobody talk about that.
Right. And that's the thing that's why we started this show. That's the importance of this show, because you got walking wounded men who end up going through the cycle of going in a relationship that's a dead-end relationship. They come out, they're not mourning, they're not grieving properly. They're filling their emotions with another person. You know, that person becomes their new drug to ease their pain, to ease their feelings, and they still carrying baggage. Mm-hmm. And then they can't commit to it because they already carrying the weight of the other stuff. So then if a real good quality woman comes into their life, one that is meant to commit, one that is meant to be long-term, one that is going to be your soulmate for life, your soul's so damaged you can't even mate. You know what I'm saying? It's just terrible.
Right.
You know, and I think there's a power that comes with this idea of we must choose how we live our lives to be whole and protect our hearts. Because there is so much vulnerability now with the way that people get so physically attached and physically involved with folks so quick. It's very difficult to fight that. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that, you know, you made that point. Having self-control is critical. We'll be right back.
The Conversations from the Cave Show is produced by the Provox Media Group. The Provox Media Group provides custom digital media and production services to ethical businesses around the world. For more information, call 256-361-9127 or visit provoxmediagroup.com. Now, back to the Man Cave with Kirk Kennedy and the CFTC crew.
Just a few thoughts to wrap up our podcast today. We've been talking about singleness, single men and married women, the infidelity conundrum. And now we have, basically, just to recap, Bobby Lee, you said essentially self-control at the top of it.
Self-control.
Got to have self-control. Number 2, make sure that you have a plan to understand what's important to you for your life.
Right.
Because then you really won't be susceptible to those temptations if you have your life set in a path. Right. You're on a path.
Set standards for yourself.
That's right.
And hold the people that come into your life to standards as well.
Absolutely. And finally, making sure that you don't make decisions while you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Halt, fellas. We'll be back next time for another podcast. We're going to talk about now married men choosing married women in infidelity. That's on the next Conversations from the Cave. Thanks so much, and we'll be back next time.
Conversations from the Cave is brought to you by the Alabama Cornea Care Center, a copywritten production of the Provox Media Group, creators of positive, inspirational media for businesses and nonprofit organizations around the world. For more information, visit the Provox Media Group at provoxmediagroup.com or call 256-886 0405. The views expressed on this program are the personal beliefs of the panelists and do not necessarily represent the beliefs of the Provox Media Group or its sponsors.